Great. So if you are wanting to put in the faces for the last portion of your project 2 here, you can go ahead and go to the student data files and just go ahead and grab the face image from here underneath project 2. There's a faces.jpg. I've downloaded it a few times already, but what I'm going to do this time is instead of dragging it into my layer here, as you can see here, it's very low quality and I would have to mess around quite a bit with it. What I'm going to do instead is open it up in its own PSD file, because if I open it in my own PSD file, I can edit it a bit better. So I'm just going to go to my downloads, faces, and open this guy up. And now we see that we have our own little image here. But as the instruction manual said, we're looking at an image that's a bit low quality and low scaled. So what we can do, we can go ahead and zoom in on these faces a little bit. We see that the pixels are kind of there. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and increase the image size. So if you remember from our capstone part 1 talking, the canvas size is the actual working area with the background that's transparent. And the image size is the actual image itself. So the canvas is kind of what you're working on. You can kind of think of it as like a painting canvas almost. But the image itself will be the picture that we're working with. So I'm going to hit image. And I believe we can just kind of copy the settings straight from the manual. So you can see here, he changes the settings to be at a percentage. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the PX here. I'm going to go down to percentage. And you can see that whenever we change it to percentage, it actually changed the width and height to 100%. Because that's the normal size of the image. It's the max size of our original image. So I'm just going to put a 4 where those ones are. And as you can see, when I change that 1 to a 4 and the width, it will actually do the same for my height. It should do it automatically for you. If it's not, double check you have it on percent. And double check you have the 3:4 ratio. If you don't want it to do that, you can click or unclick this chain link right here. And as you can see, if I have it unclicked, it won't change the 1 and the 4. But if I do have it clicked, it will make them the same. So that's helpful in some situations, and in other situations you wouldn't want that. But for now, we're just going to leave that as clicked. I think I'm sharing my screen. Awesome. Okay. And now after I do all that, I have it at 72 dpi. And the interpolation is, yeah, so that's all good. I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see his face is kind of in our face now. I'm going to right click and hit 50 area. And our image is a lot bigger now than it used to be. Now, how we can tell if it's a lot bigger, you don't need to do this on your end, but if I drag my image back over to my other image, you can see here that the quality is a bit better and that it's a lot larger than it used to be. If you recall when I first dragged it in, down here, it's way smaller, right? So you can see that the upscaling kind of works for us here using that method. I'm going to go ahead and delete them because what we're going to do now is, well, first of all, it will want you to sharpen them. So to sharpen our image, we can just use the filter of Smart Sharpen. So we can go to Filter, Sharpen, Smart Sharpen. And of course, you can fiddle around with these settings as you'd like. I think it already looks okay, but as you can see here, we're going to change it to 120% and 2 pixels. So I'm just going to change this to 20. Oopsie daisy. 120%. And change this to 2 pixels. So I'm going to hit OK. I don't see too much of a difference, but again, some of these sharpenings do affect it in ways that might not be obvious right away. So it's always good to just go ahead and select the, excuse me, or follow along with the instructions there. Now here's an interesting part, is we're going to choose our ellipse select, which we haven't used since DM140. And after I choose my ellipse select, remember that is underneath the rectangle. I'm going to change the feather to 50, and you might be wondering what the feather does. The feather essentially makes it so that the edges that we're selecting are a bit nicer or lighter than a right away cutoff. And the reason we want to do that is because you can see here, it kind of fades into the image because it goes from one image to the other. I'll first of all do it at 0 to show the difference here. So I'm going to select my 0 pixel. Again, we're going to use 50. But after we select that pixel there, we're going to follow along with the instructions and draw an oval around their faces here. Maybe, I think right around here. And what we're going to do next is go to Edits and Copy. And what we're copying is just this selection here. So we don't need to drag over any images or layers like that. We can go back to our backdrop here. And then we can go to Edit and Paste. And now you'll see that I have this image in my layer. And I can rename this Faces. That's what it calls it. But you'll notice here, let me try to finish up this portion. I'll show you why we changed the feather. It wants us to change it to luminosity here. So I'm going to select my Faces image. And then go down to luminosity. Where is that? There it is. And you'll notice that my image looks a bit different than the other one, right? So you see here, his kind of blends in with the background there. But mine is sticking out at the edges. It's very obvious that it's a different image. And that actually goes back to our selection and using the feather. So again, the reason that we go to the ellipse and we change the feather to 50 is so that we can have an image that looks a bit more natural and it kind of blends into each other. So I'm going to change the feather to 50. I'm going back a few steps here. I just wanted to show off why we do the feather. And after I change it to 50, I'm just going to go ahead and drag my ellipse around their faces again. Make sure it looks a bit nice. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Copy. And then I'm going to go to Edits and Paste. And now you'll see that it already looks a bit better, right? It doesn't look as tough anymore. And you'll notice that the top of it is kind of cut off. That's fine. So I'm going to say it's fine. You don't need to be too specific about it. I'm going to go to Free Transform just to rotate it a little bit so it looks a bit like a movie poster. And I can go ahead and put the top that was cut off a bit into the wall. And now after I have these guys into my image, I can select their layer, go up to my normal selection here, and then go down to luminosity. And now I kind of have these guys blending into my photo here. And again, if you don't like how the edges are, you can just go back to the selection and maybe kind of move it around a little bit to what you'd like. Or you can always make the selection that you do a little bit smaller as well. So I can grab my ellipse select again, drag it around here into the center, go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit and Paste. And as you can see here, it's a bit better. It looks a bit smaller. And then I can change this to luminosity. And then I have my faces inside of my image here. So that's about it for your images that you need to work with. And again, that pumpkin and lightning at the background, you don't need to worry about. But the faces portion, if you're finding that you're struggling getting the faces to look right, make sure that your feather is changed so that it does do the edge reduction so it looks a bit nicer.